Cyber Detective, Episode 2, The Missing Friend. The Jackhammer Saga. Jack pulls up to the side of the street a few doors down from the Ellis's apartment building and puts his car into park. He pauses a moment, letting the sound of the rain clear his thoughts. He then raises his hand, opens his thumb and index finger, and with a quick flick, a screen appears between them. He swipes right with his eyes to see his apps and selects files. At the top of the screen, under Recent, there's a voice recording. He opens it. "Hey Jack, it's June. Look, I know we haven't spoken in a while, but I'm scared." Jack pauses the playback for a moment, listening to the rain pounding down around his car. "I think someone is following me, and my friend Tiffany. I haven't heard from her since yesterday morning. We speak every day, but she didn't pick up last night. Could I please ask for you to go over and take a look for me? I could pay. I'll find the creds, just please." This time June pauses, and Jack lets the audio play out. "I'm scared, Jack." June adds, and the message ends. Jack lowers his hand and stares out through the windscreen. Blue and red lights are flickering just ahead, the rain splashing the lights across the window. Jack sighs. This isn't going to be good. He opens the door and climbs out. The rain now thunders around him. He flicks his jacket collar up and marches towards the apartment building. Up ahead he spots two police officers stood outside the building, and as he gets closer he recognizes the two men, Andrews and Jameson. "Well, if it isn't the city's greatest private eye," Andrews says in a loud, mocking voice. "Jack, here on business, I assume?" Jameson asks. "Afraid so, gents," Jack bluntly replies, in no mood for either of them. "Who hired you?" Andrews mockingly asks. "An acquaintance," Jack simply replies, and walks up to and past the officers. "Hey, I heard you, had a run-in with some gang members from the Jackhammers the other week? Down at some discount ripper?" Andrew calls out from behind. Jack pauses, the cold rain and wind whipping against his neck. "You've got a scorpion tattoo, right?" Jameson asks. After a moment's pause, Jack simply continues on into the building. As he steps through the doors, the rain drowns out and the cold leaks away. He shakes his coat, sending a shower of raindrops in every direction. He glances over his shoulder and at the two men outside. He needs to be more careful in the future. Ahead of him stands a narrow corridor leading to a small lift at the end. Jack walks up and calls the lift. With a ding, the doors open. Jack steps inside and presses floor 8. The doors open on the 8th floor, and instantly Jack is hit with the smell he is all too familiar with. A solid, metallic scent sends a shiver down his spine. The lift opens into a small square room. 3 doors stand against each of the walls. The one directly opposite the lift, number 802, has police tape stretched from frame to frame. Jack walks up and stands before the door, staring at the tape. With a quick thought, a small blade flips out of his index finger. He slices upwards, cutting all of the tape with ease. He takes a deep breath, activates his recording implant, and grabs the handle. He pauses, letting his breath out slowly, and then opens the door. As it swings open, Jack's stomach churns. He suddenly feels lightheaded and stumbles against the frame before catching himself. Blood. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling is covered in blood. The metallic smell is now unbearable. Jack raises his hand and buries his nose in his sleeve. He steps inside, his feet sticking to the floor. Just through the door, the hallway leads off in 3 directions. Jack peers into the room on his right, a small bathroom. The sink stands opposite to the door, and is filled to the rim with blood. The mirror hanging just above it is shattered and smeared with streaks of blood. "What the hell happened here?" Jack says aloud. He then proceeds to activate his Med-V eye implant and inspects the blood on the mirror. Type A-. He then looks into the sink. Type B+. Jack frowns. It's just as he suspected. There's a mixture of blood here. This isn't from one person. Jack steps out of the bathroom and looks into the left room. A bedroom. A large double bed stands opposite the door. Its sheets are covered too, but a familiar human-like indent is clearly visible in the center of the bed. He steps closer, his eyes scanning the sheets. It wasn't just blood on the sheets. Jack clenches his fists. He will find who did this, he asserts to himself. Jack takes a moment, sighs, and then turns back into the hallway. He moves further inside the apartment and into the kitchen at the end of the hallway, and, as with every other part of the apartment, all of the surfaces are covered in blood. "What the hell is this?" Jack says aloud, with an exasperated sigh. He takes a look around the room. A long countertop stands across from the door, a sink sits in the middle. There's a stove just off to the right, and a tall fridge is at the end of the counter on the left. He sighs. Ironically, even with the amount of blood, There is very little for him to discern here. He decides he needs to see the body, and so he turns and heads back towards the front door. As he approaches the door, he hears the lift ding. Jack steps out of the apartment to meet an officer. One that Jack doesn't know. He looks young and unsure of himself. He keeps shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Jack assumes the officer's downstairs and put the new guy on duty up here, where it smells the worst. "Hey, I'm Jack, private investigator. Do you know what happened to the victim by any chance?" Jack asks. "They took her down to the morgue on 29th, the officer bluntly replies, but seems unwilling to offer up any more information. "Thank you," Jack replies, and with a short nod, he walks past the officer and back down the lift. The officer's attitude did surprise him, but perhaps it was Jameson and Andrews scaring the new guy into not talking with him. But he has bigger problems to think about, so he pushes the thoughts aside. Jack steps outside. The rain has stopped, and he notices Andrews and Jameson are stood next to two other officers a little further up the road. He can't make out their faces, and doesn't waste any time finding out. He quickly turns away, moves back down the street and into his car. He taps on the screen at the center of his car and locates the morgue on 29th. He adds it to his route planner and presses the auto drive. The steering wheel collapses and almost immediately disappears into the front console, and the car begins to drive. Jack raises his hand, opens his apps, and clicks on Mind Map. A large screen projects itself in his vision. He raises his right hand and writes Tiffany at the center. He then draws a circle around the name and begins to add lines reaching outwards. At the end of one of those lines, he adds the recording of the apartment he just made, adding the word apartment just above it. He draws another line from this and adds multiple blood types. Next, he adds June to one of the lines out from the center and puts a voice recording underneath. He sits back in his seat. He doesn't have much to go off, but perhaps examining the body will help. He then draws another line from June and adds interview. He would also need to check in with her as soon as possible, he thinks. It doesn't take long for the car to arrive at the morgue. Once the car has parked itself, Jack removes his seatbelt and steps out into the cold air. The morgue was nothing special to look at, but always gives Jack creeps. Its walls were tall and looming. Dark bricks kept the entire place cast in shadow. It had no neon lights, or really any lights at all, and just had a simple door with a sign above it, Mortician and Autopsy. Jack walks over and steps into the small waiting area. The box room contains one door, a counter, and a bunch of chairs. He walks up to the counter and taps on the bell. "Be right with you," a headless voice replies from somewhere in the building. Jack turns around and plonks himself into one of the chairs, his hands buried in his jacket pockets. Something about this crime didn't add up. Not the killing part. Sadly, that was all too common these days. But the blood, the sheer amount of it. Why had it been thrown everywhere? What did it mean? "Ah, Jack," a voice calls out, interrupting his train of thought. Jack looks up. "Kevin, how are you?" he replies, meeting the older man's gaze. "Oh, can't complain too much. There's no shortage of work, so the bills are paid," Kevin replies with a slight smirk. "A girl was brought here earlier today, I believe," Jack asks. "Ah, yes, Tiffany, right?" "That's right," Jack replies with a nod. "Come on then, she's in room 1, Kevin replies and taps something behind the counter. A sudden buzzing fills the room. Jack stands, walks over to the door, and steps through. The hallway beyond is long and narrow. A large metal door stands a few meters away against the right wall. Jack walks towards the door and it opens as he approaches. Before him is a room not much bigger than the waiting room. At the center is a large metal trolley, with a cupboard body laying on top. On either side of the room stands large floor-to-ceiling metal shelvings, cupboards, and other storage units. Scattered around the room are several small trays on wheels. And beyond the trolley is a large door leading further into the building. This door silently slides open. Kevin walks in. Jack notices his limp has gotten slightly worse, and the man's left hand is shaking more than he remembers. He was well aware of Kevin's deteriorating health, and his refusal to add more implants to help him. "If it's my time, then I accept it when it arrives," Kevin had once said to Jack when he had brought it up. "Here she is," Kevin states, pulling Jack out of his thoughts. He then throws the sheet covering Tiffany's body down over itself, revealing her body from the waist up. Jack takes a few more steps forwards. Tiffany was clearly very attractive. Her short blonde hair, smooth skin, subtle lips. If it had been just a random killing, it would have been easy to write it off as jealousy or a scorned lover. However, now, as he looked at her pale face, he knew there was much more to it. "Cause of death?" Jack asks. "Strangulation," Kevin says and leans in a bit further. "You can see the bruising on her neck, here and here," he continues, pointing out the marks. "I checked her stomach, her blood, every inch of her in fact, and there is no other cause," he adds, but then pauses and looks up at Jack. "What?" Jack instinctively asks. "There is one thing I don't understand," Kevin continues and lifts Tiffany's left arm off the table and gently turns it. Jack feels a sudden chill run up his spine. Tiffany has a jackhammer symbol branded on her forearm. "I've never seen this before. Is it a calling card or something?" Jack inquires, further inspecting the brand. "It's from the Jackhammers," Jack replies. Yeah, I figured that much. Question is, why do this? Kevin asks. Sending a message, Jack bluntly replies, his mind reeling with the discovery. This wasn't about Tiffany or the killing. This was about him. A message? What message? And to who? Kevin presses. I'm not sure yet, but I think it's for me, Jack replies. For you, but why? What have you gotten yourself into now? Kevin asks. Don't worry about it. Thanks for the information. I gotta go. Jack simply replies and quickly makes his way back out of the room and down the hallway. Now something really did feel off. He needs to speak with June. He hurries back to his car, brings up his hand, opens his contacts, and calls June. The phone rings for a few moments before June picks up. Jack? She answers. June, are you available now for a quick chat? Jack asks. Yes, sure, of course. Wait, do you have news? Is it bad? June begins to inquire. I'll be over in 20. Don't answer the door unless it's me, understand? He replies. Jack, you're scaring me. It's bad, isn't it? June presses. Jack sighs. Tiffany is dead, June. I will be over soon. He replies, hangs up, and puts her address in the route planner, and lets the car drive itself. He feels bad for ending the conversation this way, but he knows June would want more answers, and she would just get herself even more worked up. So, for now, this will have to do. As the car pulls out of the morgue's car park, Jack opens his mind map again. He draws a new line from the center and adds Jackhammer branding on forearm. Then, he adds a line from this and puts message to me with a question mark. He wasn't certain just yet, but he felt it in his gut. This was a message for him. It doesn't take long to arrive outside June's apartment. Olamode Heights. It isn't exactly one of the most luxurious apartments in the city. The unclean look, the lack of maintenance, and the building-sized adverts blazing day and night on its front wall don't exactly help either. Jack steps out of his car, enters the apartment building, into the lift, and hits the button for the 10th floor. The lift shudders to start, and rattles its way up through the floors. Once on the 10th floor, Jack takes a left out of the lift and into a narrow hallway. He proceeds to the far end of the floor and stops before door number 1001. He hesitates for a moment, then raises his hand and knocks on the door. After a short pause, the door opens a few inches. Jack sees the chain lock keeping the door in place. A slim, delicate face appears between the gap. Jack can already see the redness of her eyes. Jack? June says with a relieved sigh and quickly closes the door, unhooks the chain, and reopens it. June throws herself at Jack, wrapping her arms around his chest. Jack hesitates for a moment, but then gently wraps his arms around June. He feels her lean into him, the tension leaving her body. Jack gently pushes June to arm's length, and with a quick nod towards the apartment, June lets go, turns and heads inside. The apartment door opens up into the lounge. A large half-circle couch sits in the middle of the room, facing towards the wall-sized screen currently playing the latest news. Drink? June asks as Jack closes the door. Tea, if you have it. Otherwise, water is fine, Jack replies. June nods. Please, take a seat. Make yourself at home, she says, and disappears into one of the only two doors out of the lounge. Jack sits on the couch and looks up at the screen. The news is discussing the recent change to the city's governor. Many are dissatisfied that the one now in charge of running the city just so happens to be Tracy Mickelson, the CEO of the largest pharmaceutical company in the city. Before Jack could really get an idea of what was going on, June reappears in the room, bringing 2 cups. She sets them down on the small oval table before the couch and sits down beside him. June, Jack begins. I am so very sorry about Tiffany, he adds. I had a feeling. I didn't want to admit it, but I just kind of knew, June replies, wiping a tear from her eyes. Look, I know this may be difficult, but I need to ask you some questions. I need to understand, Jack continues, looking at June's averted face. I know. What do you want to know? She slowly replies. Start from the top, Jack prompts, and activates his recording implants again. It started earlier this week. This man, he came in and asked for me specifically. Lindsay, she offered him a deal. So he got me and Tiffany instead. We took him to a room and started, dancing for him. At first it seemed normal, just a guy looking for some fun. But out of nowhere he asks, how well do you know Jack? June pauses and looks at Jack. Go on, he encourages, not wanting to interrupt her train of thought. At first I played dumb. I know a lot of Jacks, I replied. But the stare he gave me, he knew I knew which Jack. June takes a sip from her cup before continuing. Jack could see how tough this was, but he needs to know. He asked when I'd last seen you. I told him it had been a while, but it wasn't like we were close. She continues. Jack could feel himself getting tense. Did they target June for her connection to him? It was getting uncomfortable, so we asked him to leave. But he said he paid for it and wanted his answers. So we just got Lindsay in the end. And our bouncer threw him out. After that, we didn't see him again. June pauses and takes another sip of tea. That is, until last night. Me and Tiffany left the club and started home. We went down our usual route, and there he was, just waiting for us on the corner. We ignored him, walked down the alley, but he didn't follow. It was odd. He just watched us walk away, she adds. After a few moments' pause, Jack puts his tea down. So, how did it was him? He asks. Just a feeling. After me and Tiffany split up to go our separate ways home, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. I spoke with Tiffany in the morning and she seemed fine. We were on shift that night together, but of course she never turned up, June replies. Okay, so this man, what did he look like? Jack inquires. He was around your height? Large man. Fat, not built. He had brown hair and his right arm was a silver prosthetic. He had brown eyes, almost black, June describes. Good. What was he wearing? Jack presses. Both times he was wearing a grey... June begins to show Jack what looks to be a vest top. Jack quickly nods. A vest, I got you, he states. Yeah, one of those. He also had cargo shorts on. He was wearing some combat boots looking things, June adds. Okay, good. Did he give a name? Jack asks. No, never, she replies. Alright. Thank you for this. I know this must be hard. So, look, I'll get to work on this right away, but it may take a while. So in the meantime, I need you to remain at home. Don't answer the door unless you know exactly who it is. Same with calls. I need to find this guy and make sure he isn't going to hurt you. Understood? Jack says. June doesn't look at Jack. She just holds her cup in both hands and stares blankly forwards. June? Jack prompts. Yeah. Yes, sure. Okay, Jack. But look, June begins and turns to look at Jack. It's fine. I can't afford this. Just knowing about Tiffany is enough, she adds. But as she goes to continue, Jack raises his hand. Enough, June. We are friends. You don't owe me anything. I need you to be safe. Please say you understand and you'll stay home until I contact you with more, Jack says. Okay, I understand, June replies, producing a tissue from her pocket and dabbing her eyes. Good. Okay. I gotta get going. Call me if anything happens. Anything, okay? Jack says and stands up from the couch. June nods and stands up. Thanks, Jack, she replies. Jack smiles gently, turns and heads back out of the apartment and into his car. He sits in his car for a moment and stares blankly at the steering wheel. The Jackhammers were never known for their organization, or for targeting people's family to send a message or make a point, even when their leader was alive. So why now are they acting like this? The thoughts swirl around in his mind, the dots not aligning, the goal not revealing itself. He lets out a long sigh, selects home on his navigation center, and lets the car drive him home. As the car moves, Jack opens his mind map. He draws another line from June's name and puts her recording at the end. Next, he draws a line from Tiffany at the center and adds Jackhammer HQ. The thought of revisiting the place sends a chill up his spine. But he needs to know, and he needs to check it out. Jack leans back in his chair, closes his eyes, and tries to clear his mind. A sudden flash of light bursts through his mind, a familiar thud against his arm. A burst of pain shooting up from his elbow. The sensation of weightlessness surrounds him. A sudden crash, and Jack jolts awake. He glances around in shock. The car has already parked itself at the underground parking to his apartment building. Its lights are off, and it's in power-saving mode. He rubs his eyes. His head spins with confusion. How long had he been asleep? And that dream wasn't just any dream. Jack sighs, climbs out of the car, walks over to the lift and hits the 15th floor. The lift opens to a small hallway which leads to one door, room 1501. Jack walks up to the door, leans forward and looks into the spy window at the center of the door. A quick flash of light scans his eye, and a single beep signals a small panel next to the door to slide open and reveal a key combination lock. He enters the code 426105. Another short beep, followed by a mechanical clunk, and the door opens. The lights of the entryway turn on as he steps inside. He takes off his jacket and hangs it up, kicks his shoes against the wall and wanders down the hallway. The first door on his left is his bedroom. He aimlessly steps inside, walks up to his bed, and claps his face first onto the mattress. A sounding alarm brings Jack back into reality. He groans, rolls onto his back, and silences the alarm on the bedside. He peels his lazy eyes open and stares at the ceiling. The events of yesterday playing over in his head. All he ever wanted to do was help those children, and now he was being targeted. But lying in bed wasn't going to help anyone, so he forces himself up and into the shower. He leans against the wall of the shower, letting the warm water pour down around him, his mind wandering towards the Jackhammer's base. His first port of call for the day. He didn't really think he'd find anything there, and still didn't even want to go, but he needed to. He needed to be sure. Jack eventually turns off the water, dries himself, and heads further down the hallway and into the second door on the left, the kitchen. It's a small room, but spacious enough for him. He reaches the fridge off to his right. It's fairly empty, save for a small packet of bacon and some eggs. He grabs them out and puts them onto the kitchen counter. Next, he takes a pan out from one of the cupboards under the counter, moves over to the stove, and puts it down. He turns on the heat, takes the bacon out, and places 5 slices onto the pan. Above the stove are shelves. He opens one directly above the stove and takes out some seasonings. Soon the crackle of fat fills the room. Jack walks over to his kettle on the counter beside the fridge, fills it up and begins to boil. He then attends to the bacon, flips it over and adds some seasoning. He has some space in the pan, so he cracks and adds 2 eggs, seasoning as he goes. Soon the food is ready, so he grabs a plate from the dishwasher beside the stove and plates his bacon and eggs. At the corner of the room stands a tall cupboard. Jack moves over and gets himself a couple of slices of bread. Uses the remaining heat and oil in the pan to lightly fry each slice. Finally, he pours himself a cup of tea and sits on a circular table in the middle of the room. He raises his hand, opens his index and thumb to display the screen, and then he begins to go through the morning's news. Nothing out of the ordinary catches his eye until one headline. Recent increase in child disappearances causes locals to question safety. Jack hovers on this article, not sure if he should read it, but ultimately, he does. He skims the article, trying to find the key points of interest. Suddenly he freezes, his bacon hanging in the air as he stares at the word Jackhammer. He reads the paragraph. Despite the recent events befalling the Jackhammer gang, namely regarding their leader and base of operations, there has been an increase in the number of children going missing, with all of the witnesses claiming the Jackhammer gang were the ones responsible. How is this happening? Jack thought, racking his brain for an answer. But he continues. The police have announced a task force being put together to help investigate and combat the growing problem, but also to reassure the public that they are taking action. The article continues. They are encouraging any witnesses or anyone with any information regarding the disappearances to head to their local station. Jack lowers his hand and stares at the wall. He needs those answers, and he needs them now. He quickly finishes his breakfast, gets changed, and heads out. Once in his car, Jack pauses, his hand hovering over the route planner, hesitating. Come on, Jack, he chastises himself, and then types in the address and hits auto drive. The car doesn't share Jack's hesitation, and immediately begins to maneuver its way out of the car park and onto the busy morning streets. It's about a 30-minute drive, so Jack leans back in his chair and opens his mind map. He draws a line from Tiffany at the center and adds, kidnapping. He looks at the word. The work he put into saving those children has only made things worse. He felt stupid thinking his actions would finally start making things better in this damn city. Time seems to pass quickly, and soon the car pulls onto 78th Street. Jack quickly takes control of the car and slows down. At the end of the road, sat on the T-junction, is a large, burnt husk of a building. Jack pulls to the side and parks a little way up from the building. He steps out and slowly begins to make his way across the road and towards the building. The burnt building rises before Jack like a shadow. He stands before it as it looms over him. It's almost unrecognizable. It used to be an old-fashioned 3-story house made from wood and bricks, a relic, something to be kept in a museum. However, this one housed the Jackhammers and their crimes. Jack starts moving up to what used to be the garden and towards the front door. He pauses at the door, or what was left of it, and peers inside. There is nothing above the first floor left, even the ceiling of the first floor is mostly missing. Jack steps past the remains of the door and into the narrow hallway. He activates his recording implant and begins to investigate. He glances to the left into what was the lounge. He recalls the simple white paint covering the walls, the large wooden beams stretching across the ceiling, and the giant fireplace sat at the far end. He pushes forwards. The floor crunches under his steps. At the end of the hallway, the doorframe stands alone. He steps through and into a large square room, which used to be the kitchen. Opposite the entrance is another doorframe leading out into the back garden. The garden looks untouched by the fire. A set of stone steps leads down into the garden, and a thin perimeter of stones separates the garden from the house. Jack stands at the top of the steps and looks out over the garden. Something catches his eye. He squints to try and get a better look, but ultimately decides to descend the steps. His heart begins to race as he realizes he wasn't just seeing things. There, in the grass, are footprints. He moves closer and crouches down to make sure he wasn't seeing things. But there they were, footprints, and recent ones. The footprints lead towards the back of the garden, where it meets a waist-height fence. As the footprints reach the fence, they turn left and lead towards the far corner. Jack reaches the corner, and now that he is close, he notices that the fence post here looks slightly off. He runs his hand along the post, and it's immediately obvious that the post is metal, not wood like the rest. He inspects the post further and quickly discovers a well-concealed panel on the very top. He flips the panel open to reveal a keypad lock. Jack's pulse quickens. "What do we have here?" he says aloud to himself. He takes a close look at the keypad and sees that there has clearly been some recent usage. He then raises his hand, opens the screen between his thumb and index finger, swipes over to his apps, and selects Breacher. A black screen appears in Jack's eyes. He quickly issues the first command using his thoughts. Wide scan. The app begins to return nearby wireless signals. A fair few signals appear nearby, but it's the strongest signal that he takes note of. JHC 1005. Jack issues the next command. Probe JHC 1005. A flurry of lines of text begin to rain down in Jack's eyes. Glances up and down the list of information and notices the following important lines. Connected devices 2. Security encryption phase 3 alphanumeric. Jack frowns. Nothing he encountered or researched regarding the jackhammers was anywhere near this level of encryption. It didn't make any sense that this was at such an advanced level. However, even this advanced level of encryption was not beyond his capabilities, so he issues the next command, breach JHC 1005. Text once again begins to rain down in his eyes. This is going to take a while, so he closes the screen in his right eye and leaves it hovering in the top left corner of his left eye. He stands and turns towards the house. It occurs to him that he never really came out here on that night. What had he missed? What truth was he about to uncover? Jack leans against the fence. The drain on him caused by this software makes him feel as if he's drunk. His head feels heavy and full of stuffing. He glances up at the app, which is still clearly hard at work, and he lets out a sigh. It's impossible to tell how long it will take, but from his experience, it should take around 20 minutes. After what feels like an age, Jack's heavy feeling suddenly clears. He glances up at the app window, enlarges it in his left eye, and looks at the following line. Input code found. A01S6G16A. He turns toward the keypad and enters the code. An affirming beep sounds as Jack hits the last character, and he watches in amazement as a small circular hatch swings open just beside him. He peers into the hole and can clearly make out a well-lit room below. He looks at the ladder leading down and he hesitates. If someone is in the room below, he will be at their mercy. He considers throwing down a flash grenade, but doesn't want to risk causing any damage or disrupting things too much if he can help it. He sighs. There is one option that occurs to him. The drop doesn't look that big. He could draw his pistol, drop down into the hole without using the ladder, and then he may stand a better chance of defending himself if someone is waiting for him. The more he considers the idea, the more stupid it feels, but he does like the idea of it. Well, he says aloud. Nothing is ever easy, he adds, draws his pistol, and steps into the hole. He lands hard, bends his knees and rolls forwards, brings his pistol up as he ends the roll and quickly scans the room. But there's no one around. Jack feels his pulse slow, and he stands up to take the room in properly. It's just barely high enough for him to stand up in, and it can't be more than 4 meters by 4 meters in size. Computers, server racks filled with servers, and various other bits of hardware line the walls around him. At the far end of the room is a tiny desk set up with a couple of screens. He moves over to the desk and sits down at the stool standing before it. The screen springs to life as he does. A login screen now sits before him. He lets out a sigh. It wouldn't be impossible to crack, but it would be very time-consuming. It's clear from the footprints outside that there are regular visitors to this place. He just has to set up some cameras and wait for them to arrive. Of course, this plan had some issues, namely how long he would have to wait. But after a few moments, he decided he will set up some cameras and see what he finds. With this decision made, he stands, leaves the bunker-like room, closes the door behind him, and returns to his car. He throws open the boot and lifts up the parcel shelf to reveal a whole selection of gadgets, guns, and various other tools. There is a small box with an eye symbol etched to the top, which Jack grabs and heads back towards the house. As he steps back through the doorway, Jack opens the box, pulls out a small circular camera, and attaches it to a nearby pillar aimed at the front door. He then moves out into the garden, puts another camera on the outside wall aimed towards the entrance to the underground room. Jack then lifts his hand, opens the screen between his thumb and index finger, goes over to the apps and opens the camera. He then selects Connect to External Cameras. After a short pause, 2 cameras appear in the list of available cameras. He selects both. Both cameras appear in the corner of his eyes. He then goes back into the settings and selects Monitor Sensor Alert to On. Satisfied with the positioning setup, Jack heads back to his car. He leans back in the seat, opens his mind map, and under Jackhammer HQ, he draws another line and adds server room/ops room under the back garden. He then closes his mind map and closes his eyes. The two cameras are the only things still visible in the corner of his darkened vision. He lets out a long, slow breath and tries to relax. He knows it could be a very long wait. He stands upon a hill. Nothing but mud, smouldering remains, and corpses are strewn about him. He walks forwards, his feet sticking to the mud. His right arm, his natural arm, is badly damaged and hangs limply at his side. He hears a beeping. It sounds like it's coming from the husk of a nearby tank. He walks towards it. Its turret is badly damaged and smoke is pouring out of the hatch at the top. He climbs onto the tank, the beeping still sounding. He tries to look inside the tank, but the smoke is too intense. "Hello?" he calls out, but no one replies. "Damn it," he says aloud, and with a deep breath, he drops into the tank. Suddenly he's awake in his car. The cameras are visible in the corner of his eyes. He blinks a few times. It's dark outside. He has no idea how long he's been asleep, but as he looks at the cameras, his heart starts beating against his chest. There, in the back garden, are two figures. One of them is entering the code to the door by the fence post, and the other is clearly trying to keep a lookout. Jack enables the night vision on the cameras. The two men begin to glow a bright white. The one keeping a lookout is clearly Jack's height, and is trying, and failing, to conceal a gun under his jacket. Jack glances out towards the house before him. A car is parked in front of the house now. He leaps out of his car, opens up the boot, and grabs a thin, lightweight pistol with a rectangular barrel. He presses and holds a button on the side, near the trigger, and a series of lights appear along the sides of the barrel. He quickly and quietly dashes towards the house, trying to keep as out of sight as possible. Once at the T-junction, he pulls up the pistol and aims towards the rear wheel. He fires. A small, dart-shaped projectile effortlessly zips from the barrel and lands perfectly in the wheel well. Satisfied at the shot, he turns and returns to his car. Once inside, he empties a small card from where the gun's magazine would normally go, and slots the car into his navigation center in the car. A dialog appears on the screen. Tracker data detected. Allow access. After confirming access, a progress bar appears in the center of the screen. After a quick wait, the bar disappears and a small red dot appears on the map. "Perfect," Jack says aloud, and then he brings the cameras back into view. The lookout is still stood in the garden, but the second man has clearly entered the room. He shuffles back into his seat to get comfy, prepares to wait for however long he needs to. He watches as the second man sways from side to side, peering down into the hall every so often, clearly frustrated at having to wait outside in the cold. Jack wonders if it's worth confronting the men now. With one occupied in the room, it would be an even fight. However, before he is able to consider the option any further, a head appears out of the hole and the second man climbs out. They then close the door and begin making their way back to the car. Jack feels tense as he watches the cameras. They move past the garden camera and back into the house. He switches to the front door camera only, and as the two men pass by, he captures a few pictures. He then looks out through the windscreen. The two men are having a brief chat beside the car. It looks as if they're in a disagreement about something, but even after opening the window a bit, he can't hear anything. Soon, however, they are climbing back into the car. Jack then turns on his own car, but leaves the lights off. He stares at the navigation center. The red dot on the map begins to move. He waits for a moment, and then begins to drive after them. The two men navigate their way through the windy residential streets lined with small apartment buildings, narrow alleyways, and road-to-wall buildings. The streets quickly become a maze, and Jack knows he would almost certainly have been lost if it wasn't following the two men. They drive for about 20 minutes before they pull up to one of the small apartment buildings. It's only about 5 stories high and has a small front garden, surrounded by a wall no higher than his knees. The two men walk up to the ground floor entrance and ring the doorbell. After a brief wait, a large, round man answers the door. Jack feels the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. It's him. Without hesitation, Jack decides that he will wait for the men to leave, and then he'll have a private conversation with this man. The men remain in the apartment for about half an hour. Jack can already feel the pull of sleep in his eyes, but he can't wait until tomorrow. This is happening tonight. After the men climb back into their car and leave, Jack exits the car and sneaks his way towards the apartment. Jack approaches the door, his pulse quickening with every step. The door itself is locked with a fairly basic keypad. However, when Jack tries to scan for it, he realizes he can't find it. He raises an eyebrow. A wired security? He thinks to himself. How unusual. Security setup like this is uncommon in the less prestigious parts of the city. So why is it here? He quickly pushes the thoughts aside. He has bigger problems right now. How to get in. It's not that these keypads can't be cracked. It's just a very involved task and one he doesn't have time for right now. Shit. He mutters aloud and lets out a short sigh. He looks towards the windows off to the right of the door. Its blinds are pulled mostly down, so only a small amount of light is escaping into the night. He carefully moves over to the corner and looks inside. The man is sitting in a large, single armchair. He is clearly asleep. Jack considers his options for a moment and glances back at the door. What if he just rang the doorbell? He could get the man to open up and enter at gunpoint. It's risky, though. He then takes a closer look at the glass. It looks like fairly standard double-paned glass. He could cut through it. It's not the most elegant way to enter, and he runs a risk of waking the man inside, but he doesn't see any other way. Shit. Says aloud again, not keen on either option. He stands back up and goes over to the door. He draws his pistol, gives it a quick check over, pulls the hammer back, and with a heavy weight on his chest, he rings the doorbell. His heart begins to thud against his chest. Nothing happens. He lets out a long, slow breath and rings again. Still, nothing happens. He frowns, moves back over to the window, and takes another look through. The man is still fast asleep on the chair. Window it is then, Jack mutters under his breath, pushes the hammer on his pistol back, and holsters the gun. He heads back to his car and retrieves a long rectangular box from the boot. He then quickly makes his way back to the apartments. From the box he pulls out a number of instruments. One of these is a small cylinder, no longer than his middle finger and is about as wide as 2 fingers. On one end of the cylinder is a suction cup. He pushes it firmly against the window until it's stuck in place. Next he takes out what looks like a spinning top. It has a flat circular top on one end, and the other end narrows down to a point. He then pulls a long metal rod out of the box. He connects the spinning top to one end of the rod, and the other end to the cylinder on the window, so that the spinning top's point is resting against the glass. Next he pulls out a small bottle, filled with a lubricant. He carefully lifts the metal rod away from the window, and squirts some lubricant at the spot. The spinning top touches the glass. Finally, Jack pulls out 2 circular handles, each with a large suction cup on either side, and he places them firmly against the glass, just above and below the cylinder. He makes a quick check to ensure the rod has enough clearance to pass over the handles, and is satisfied with the setup. Jack then pushes a button on top of the cylinder. A green light appears around the edge of the cylinder, and in one swift motion, the metal rod rotates 360 degrees. He waits a moment, and then carefully grabs hold of the 2 handles, and pulls. A large circular cut of glass slides free from the window. He carefully places it on the ground and turns his attention back to the window. The man is still silent and sat in his chair. Jack then carefully begins to climb inside, moving the blinds out of the way as he goes. Eventually he makes it inside and clear of the blinds. He raises his pistol, aims it at the man, and slowly walks towards him. Jack gives him a nudge, but he doesn't respond. Pushes him a bit harder, but still nothing. Something isn't right. He activates his MedV implants and almost immediately lets out a long sigh. The man is dead. His implants identify a small trauma to his left temple. It had been hidden from view this entire time. He kneels beside the man and inspects the injury. It's a small wound, the size of a needle, but his implants clearly indicate the wound went deep enough to be fatal. Shit. Jack says aloud again and stands back up, holsters his pistol, and begins to look around the room. The screen at the opposite end is still on and playing a movie he doesn't recognize, but otherwise the room is fairly plain. Nothing stands out, so he slowly makes his way out of the lounge and into the hallway. There is another room off to the right, and a final opening at the end that leads into the kitchen. Jack moves down the hallway and into the room on the right. He pauses. The room has been turned upside down. Bed sheets, clothes, a desk, all of it strewn about the room. The floor is covered in clothing, part of what looks like a shelf, shoes, and various other items. Over the far side of the room is a very badly damaged computer screen. Jack steps over the debris and makes his way over. The computer attached to the screen is very badly damaged, but Jack flips it the right way up and tries to turn it on. A light flickers into life. Jack feels a sense of hope, but the sound of a car pulling up outside quickly shatters the feeling. He immediately opens the screen between his thumb and finger and scrolls to his car app. He opens the navigation menu and to his dread he sees the red dot of the tracked car is directly outside. Jack grabs the computer, disconnects the cables and hurries his way back into the lounge. "What the fuck is going on here?" Jack hears as he approaches the hole in the window. "Who cares? We're nothing left soon anyways," the second voice replies. Jack peers through the blinds. He recognizes the 2 men. One of them is digging through the boot while the other is looking directly towards him. The man rummaging through the boot then proceeds to produce an RPG and a chill crawls up Jack's spine. He draws his pistol. Just as the man raises the RPG, Jack throws the blinds up, takes aim and fires. The 2 men dive out of the way and Jack takes the opportunity to leap out of the window and into the garden. "Who the hell is that?" one of the men shouts from somewhere beyond the wall. "I don't know, but we've got to deal with him now," second responds, followed by a sudden spray of bullets. Jack keeps low, crawling his way towards the wall. As he gets near, the bullets still flying overhead. He hops up onto one knee, draws his pistol, and takes aim at the man, spraying rounds haphazardly. He fires. The shot crashes into the man's chest and throws him helplessly backwards. Jack carefully scans the parked cars for any sign of movement, and suddenly the second man steps out from one of the cars. He moves to aim, but watches in horror as the man raises the RPG and fires. Jack fires a shot in the man's direction, but quickly dives back into the grass, wrapping his arms over his head. The ground shakes as the RPG crashes into the building. Debris begins to rain down around him, smoke fills the air, and the smell of burning consumes his senses. For a moment Jack only hears a dull ring, but the ring quickly turns into cries for help and pained moans. Confused, he lifts up his head and looks around, but the moment he does, all he hears is the ringing. He shakes his head and looks back at the apartment, but all he can see is thick smoke bellowing into the night sky. Shit, Jack says aloud, but quickly turns his attention back to the road. He slowly gets up from the grass, his gun trained on the cars. He carefully steps over the low wall and into the road. The first man is lying lifeless and slumped against a car. Jack uses his Med V to double check that he is gone and, as expected, he doesn't see any signs of life. Jack then begins to move along the cars, ignoring the now very awake neighborhood. He spots a foot poking out from behind a car. He starts to take a wider walk out into the road, keeping his gun aimed at the end of the car. The second man is lying in a growing pool of blood. His breathing is shallow, and the RPG lies beside him. Jack hurries over, plants a knee firmly in the man's chest, which gets a groan out of the man, and puts the gun against his temple. "Who are you working for?" Jack asks. The man starts to laugh, which quickly turns into a cough as he struggles with the shot to his chest that Jack had somehow managed to land. "The Jackhammers, you fucking idiot," the man replies. Jack feels a sudden burst of anger. "Who's in charge of the Jackhammers?" he asks through gritted teeth. "The leader," the man begins, but Jack interrupts him with a jab to his knee. "I'd never tell you," he adds. "I'll kill you if you don't," Jack replies, pressing the gun harder against his temple. "Oh yeah? Well, they'll kill me if I do," the man replies. "You're a dead man either way, so just tell me," Jack presses. "Fuck you," the man replies with a defiant smile on his face. Jack feels his blood boiling. He feels he is so close to getting the answers he needs. "Why are..." Jack begins, but realizes the man is no longer moving. He quickly scans him with his Med V. Dead. Jack clenches his fist and slams it into the car beside him. "Shit," he says again under his breath. Jack then realizes the chaos going on around him. He hears the distant sound of emergency services en route, and the people beginning to gather outside. He grabs the computer and hurries further down the road into his car. He throws the computer onto the passenger seat, turns the car on and begins to reverse the car around, keeps the lights off and begins to drive. He quickly realizes the flashing lights are coming directly towards him, so he quickly pulls to the side behind a parked car and sinks down into his seat. A flurry of cars, lights blazing, fly past him and further down the road. He waits for a moment, his heart racing. He takes a deep breath and slowly sits up in his seat, only for a fire truck to shoot by, freezing him in the moment. He cautiously looks at the back of the car. The police are already setting up a cordon across the road and beginning to in through the neighbours. "Time to go," he says to himself, reverses, pulls out, and drives off as quickly as possible. Jack puts the car's auto drive on and grabs the computer off the seat. It's badly damaged and the case is partially open. It looks as if someone took a bat to it. He carefully pulls the rest of the case open, revealing the various circuit boards and chips inside. Thankfully, most of the components are undamaged. Jack looks through the chips until he finds the flash drive. He carefully unclips the drive and places it into the cup holder. He then sits back and opens up his mind map. He draws with a line from the Jackhammer HQ and adds the 2 photos that he took earlier. Suddenly Jack's phone begins to ring. A small blank square appears in the corner of his eye, with "Department" written in the square. Jack sighs and accepts the call. "Jack, I just got off the call with some of my guys down in the Middle City Residential. A couple of known Jackhammer guys lying in a pool of their own blood," Alex states. Not posing a question, but Jack knew it was. "I just had a few questions for them," Jack replies. "Of course," Alex starts, and then pauses. "Can't just go blowing up the neighborhood, Jack. What the hell are you thinking?" he adds. "That wasn't me. They brought the RPG," Jack bluntly replies. "You saw the news, right?" "We already made a team for this. You don't need to get into it," Alex says. "This one's personal," Jack states. "It always is with you, Jack. Look, just try to keep it less..." Alec pauses. "Explosive?" Jack adds. "Something like that. See you around, Jack," Alec replies and disconnects the call. Jack lets out a long sigh. Alec has always looked out for him. They had been through a lot after all. He hated to bring so much trouble his way, but while Alec chose to sit behind a desk, Jack knew he could never live like that. He needed something more. It just so happened that something came with its own set of problems. The car takes Jack home with little problem. Once back in his apartment, he heads straight into his office. At the center of the room sits a large chair, specifically designed for lying down on. Above the chair, attached to the ceiling, is a short cylinder device. Jack walks over to the chair and lies down. He pushes a button on the side of the left armrest, and a small tray slides out. He places the flash drive on the tray and closes it. Next, he lies down in the chair and pushes a button on the side of the headrest. A beep sounds from the cylinder above him. The bottom of the cylinder then opens up. A full-face headset and 2 gloves begin to lower down towards him. Once the gloves are within reach, he grabs them and pulls them over his hands. Next, he grabs the headset and pulls it towards his face. He secures the mask on his face with the straps, and the outside world completely fades away. Sound, sight, even air is cut off. A glow begins to emanate in front of his eyes, and a supply of oxygen starts to blow. He takes a long, deep breath. After a short delay, a series of red lines scan various parts of Jack's eyes, and a voice calls out to him, "Confirm voice authorization." "Jack," he replies. "Welcome back, Jack," the voice responds. "Hello, Veronica," Jack greets. "How may I assist you tonight?" Veronica asks. Scan the flash drive, please, he instructs, not entirely sure why he's being so polite to his AI assistant, but it felt wrong to treat her any other way. Of course, Veronica responds. This drive is badly damaged, she adds, and Jack feels his heart sink. Data retrieval in progress. Jack sits, watching a series of progress bars and screens flicker before him, the image of the flash drive floating around the entire time. Retrieval complete. Corrupted data is estimated at 64%, Veronica states. Can you run the OS in a virtual box? Jack asks. Loading virtual environment now, she replies, and a large blank box appears before his eyes, with the progress bar in the middle. I must inform you, Jack, that the OS may be unstable, she adds. I know, but I need to take a look, Jack replies. The progress bar reaches 100%, and a light blue screen appears with a login box at the center. Virtual environment ready, Jack, Veronica states. Can we crack this login, please? He instructs, and watches as a series of screens pop into life. Breaching, Veronica replies, and the screens fill with line after line of text. While Veronica is working, Jack looks to his left and opens up his mind map. Using his hands, almost like a mouse and keyboard, he draws a line from the Jackhammer HQ and adds flash drive. He looks back to the right. Veronica is still hard at work, so Jack closes his eyes. Ping me when it's ready, he instructs. Of course, Jack, Veronica replies. A beeping noise rouses Jack from his nap. He looks around until his eyes manage to focus. Breach completed. I have also logged in, Veronica informs him. Great, let's see what we have, shall we? He replies, and using his hands, he begins to dig through the files, starting with the email program. As the program is loading, the virtual screen flickers black, and when it returns, a series of black squares is now present in the top left corner. Jack begins to skim through the emails. Most of them look like spam, and a good portion of them are corrupted. He then opens the deleted folder, and a series of emails appear which pique his interest. Simple task, the subject said. Jack opens the email, and is delighted to see it's a long, uncorrupted email chain. He scrolls down to the start, where somebody simply referring to themselves as Jay instructs Kane to head over to June's club, find out what she knows, and give them a bit of a scare. Veronica, please search for Kane in the mid-city residential area in the police database, Jack asks. Searching, she replies. Jack then scrolls up and reads the next message. I found the girls, but they played a bit hard to get. I followed them a bit, but lost them down one of the side alleys. He then reads the response. Go back again, but this time follow June home. Get her real scared, but nothing crazy. We just want to send him a message, Jay replies. Jack's eyes wander off the screen for a moment. At least now he knows for sure. This is about him. They are targeting him. There is then a delay of a couple of days before Kane replies. Jack looks at the date and sees the message is the day after Tiffany's death. I lost June but followed that friend of hers home. Messed her up real good as well. I'll go back tomorrow and get June, Kane boasts, and Jack feels his blood beginning to boil. The reply from Jay was within 1 hour, and he clearly wasn't impressed. Messed her up? What the fuck, Kane? It's already all over the news. I asked you to scare June, not kill her friend. We didn't want this much heat. And what is this I hear about the mess you made? Did you take some of the product as well? No, I don't care. You will do nothing else. Just sit in your apartment, you useless shit. Jack pauses. What did they mean by product? Something suddenly dawns on him. The blood. The Jackhammers are selling blood. A chill runs up his spine. This is not good. The kids, the blood. He doesn't like this at all. He reads on, but while there are 3 more emails from Kane, he's mostly just complaining, trying to get more work, and wondering how long he is housebound for. However, Jay does not reply. Jack looks away again. June could still be in danger, but it seems unlikely after the mess Kane managed to wreak. He lets out a sigh of relief. The culprit is dead, and it seems the Jackhammers may think twice before trying something like this again. Jack, Veronica calls out. Yes, he replies. There is only one match. Kane at the Toad Marks, from the Mid-City Residential, a known criminal. He spent over 10 years in jail for various crimes. No known ties to the Jackhammers, though, she states. Thank you, Veronica. I think I have what I need for now. Can you continue to scan the drive for anything else related to or referencing the Jackhammers? He replies, trying to hide the disappointment in his voice, as it now seems all of his leads are dead. Understood. Commencing scan, she replies. Finally, could you please send this recording to June? Hey, June. It looks like you should be safe to return to normal. I found the murderer, and I believe you should be left alone from now on. Please give me a call if you have any questions or anything that seems suspicious. Do not hesitate. Jack pauses for a moment, his heart heavy. Take care, June, he adds. Recording sent, Veronica states. Thanks, Veronica, he replies. I think I'll just take a nap here, he adds, and closes his eyes. Good night, Jack, Veronica replies.